Hello, everybody. It's Robert Whitaker with Journeys Through Time, HansfordHeritage.com. A real special one today for our law enforcement people. Um, it's an election year for Sheriff of Hansford County. So we've got quite a spirited election happening, it looks like, here in the primaries coming up in March. Um, so today is kind of fitting with Chip Martin, his interview in 1974. Um, Chip is the son of Sheriff Robert E. Martin, and anyone who goes in the courthouse on a regular basis passes by the memorial for Sheriff Martin. He was murdered in the line of duty on the west side of Hansford County, assisting a marshal who was, essentially, they had a boundary dispute, and the person that was essentially sitting on property that they should not have been shot Sheriff Martin and killed him. And Chip is his son. Chip had a brother named Clarence, also, who was a law enforcement officer. He was the chief of police in Los Animas, Colorado. So Chip in this interview talks about first being born in Elk City, Oklahoma. Their family first settled in Ochiltree County, which seems to be somewhere around Waka. Before Waka existed, they were here in 1902. And then in 1906, they settled down in Old Hansford. He talks about his dad building a house there where the Sparks brothers have the horse track, the racetrack. He said that section of land was essentially the section of land that his dad first settled on in the days of Old Hansford, and that he had a half dugout built on that place. I wonder, I'll have to talk to Brian or Lance about this. I just wonder if that evidence that dugout's still out there somewhere on that property. I have no idea. I'm guessing it's probably near where Brian lives over there, which is Jerry Sparks' old house. This is super interesting. I listened to Chip's interview 2 or 3 times, just trying to grab more details. He talks about his time where they, after his dad was murdered, his mother purchased property, or didn't really purchase property, but claimed property in western Colorado, southeast Colorado, which would have been Baca County, which is where my grandfather purchased a ranch in the 1940s. But he talked about making a living chopping cedar and selling it for fence posts, hauling and selling cedar for fence posts. So if anyone has been to Baca County up in that area, I grew up going out there, with my dad to my grandfather's ranch up there. Goodness gracious, there's cedar everywhere. So they were essentially making their living doing that for a while. I believe his brother Clarence stayed there, and then of course ended up as chief of police at Los Animas, not far from Baca County. Baca County is the next county up to the north is I think it's Los Animas County, but he was the chief of police there. So I've kind of very, very special episode today, I think, with this family. I don't know that we talk enough about this family and what was, it's such a dark part of our history, honestly, here in Hansford County, where we had a sheriff that was actually murdered. And so I can see why it's something that we just don't talk about very often, but I think it brings light to that memorial that sits in front of the courthouse. Thank you all again for listening, and enjoy this episode. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Spearmination. Brought to you this morning by Hopper's A&W Drive-In. Bill and Garland Hopper, one of our sponsors on this series of programs where we're trying to capture all of the lore of the olden days and the early days of this country. And we certainly have a wonderful guest with us this morning, Chip Martin, who has a tremendous story to tell. We've been visiting with him about when they came to Ochiltree County, then to Hansford County, where they came from to there, and then even back further. Did you ever go to Jack County yourself, Chip?
No, I never did, Troy.
Well, Jack County was where your dad came from, and you were born at Elk City.
Yes, sir.
Or in that vicinity. We're going to talk about that and the trip over to Ochiltree and many, many things. Chip's dad was one of the early sheriffs of Hansford County and met with misfortune while being sheriff of Hansford County. And there's just a tremendous amount of history of this country right here this morning. So you stay tuned, and right now here's a word from Hopper's A&W. Our guest this morning is Chip Martin. Among other things, Chip is the father of Eddie and James Martin, who are helping us to build a rodeo arena and establishing a real fine rodeo association here in Spearman and Hansford County. But we have a lot of things to talk about before then. Chip, you were born in 1898. July when?
28th.
July the 28th. You were almost a 4th of July baby. In about 24 days, I guess. And you were born in the vicinity of Elk City.
Yes, 4 miles north of Elk City.
So when you were about 4 years old, your family moved to Ochiltree County.
Yes, sir.
How did you move?
We moved in the wagon.
Did you have more than one wagon in your move?
Well, I don't think so, Troy. I think we just moved in one wagon.
And did you have some animals that you drove along, I guess?
Yeah, we had a few old horses. Didn't have no cattle, just brought a few horses.
And whereabouts in Ochiltree County did you move to?
Well, 4 miles south of Black Schoolhouse.
And where is that in relation to Perryton now?
Well, Perryton would be about 26, 7 miles. Perryton would be northeast from there.
Northeast? So it was down in the lower corner of Ochiltree County?
Yeah.
Southwest corner?
Yes, sir.
And when did you come to Hansford County?
In 1902, Ochiltree in 1902.
Now, Ochiltree in 1902.
Yeah.
You remember when you moved on over to Old Hansford?
In 1906.
4 years later.
Yeah.
What was that trip like? That's quite a long ways, wasn't it?
Well, it was them days. It was about 15 miles is all, you know. But we moved over there, and my daddy put in a livery stable.
Now, tell us what a livery stable had in it, because there are not any of them anymore.
No.
I guess you see Gunsmoke and Bonanza, you see what their idea of them was, but it's pretty close. What is a livery stable?
Well, that's where he had the horses and buggies. He rented them out just like he rent a car out today, you know. We had a lot of men coming in here then looking at this land, and he'd rent these buggies and horses out to them.
This land was being sold then?
Yes, sir.
In lots of sections and
yes, sir.
more, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty good business in those days then.
Well, yeah, he got along pretty good, seemed like.
How many horses do you have there? Do you remember?
Well, it seemed to me like we had 12, 15 horses in the barn out here used to.
And I guess as a young man, you had to feed them every morning and every night.
Well, I was pretty small then. My daddy around there then.
And how long were you in that business, do you know?
About 2 years, I think, so.
And was that wasn't long after that then until I guess he ran for sheriff?
He ran the sheriff in 1909.
1909. Well, now, there was a move to Colorado. Was that after this?
After that, yeah.
And how long was he sheriff before he met with misfortune?
2 years.
Now, there was a misunderstanding that cost him his life. I guess a man bought some property and it didn't have things on it that he thought was his. And the law had to go out and survey it off to settle things, and they didn't like the way it settled. Is that
That's right. There's a whole water he was trying to keep, and it wasn't his.
And he thought that was what he had when he bought it, I guess.
Yes, sir.
And so, actually, there was an ambush of your daddy. Killed him in the dark, didn't he? Shot him.
Yeah, a fellow from Bolton, a United States Marshal, called my daddy up and told him to meet him over there at McCarty's. That's a mile away from there. And they met over there in the evening and walked down to this fellow's house, and he wasn't at home. And so they seen a light didn't come on that night, and they went down. And when he went down by the house, or my dad hollered at him, and he blowed the light out and went to the barn. And my dad was walking alongside a little old calf shed there, and he shot him.
And
Fellow Pfeiffer.
what hit him? Did he have a trial or anything?
Well, yeah, Sid Talley arrested him. One of the oldest sheriffs was in the state of Texas at that time. And took him to Glacier and had his trial. Sent him to pen for 99 years.
Sid Talley, was he in Ocratree County?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And that name seems to ring a bell in Pampa years later. Did Sid Talley move to Gray County, or do you know?
No, he died over here.
Well,
But he was in office there for 34 years, sheriff.
there was a Talley that was sheriff in Gray County. May have been one of the family or
Might have
something.
been.
Now, you're talking about Glacier. That's one of the early places where the shipping took place.
Yeah, there's a big stockyard there.
And that's where the railroad, that's where the train stopped. I
Yeah.
guess. Passenger train as well as freight.
Yeah. And my brother, just older than me, Millard, went to Fort Worth and bought some heifers. And there wasn't no bridge across Canadian River, and we had to unload them at Glacier. And me and another fellow met him down there with the wagon and brought the cattle back to Old Hansford.
And you drove them across the Canadian River then?
No, they were shipped across, see?
That's
they,
right.
They was unloaded at Glacier, see?
Glacier's north of the Canadian.
That's right.
Now, did you ever have any experiences fording the Canadian?
Yes, sir, we have.
Tell us about that. I've heard some stories, some wild stories about the Canadian.
Well, we used to go to Oklahoma about every year in a wagon. My mother would take us down there, her folks. And there was a fella, Woods, that crossed the river there, and he had an old bobtail sorrel horse. And I remember that very well. And he'd tie onto your wagon tongue, to the saddle horn. There's holes in that river, you know, and he knowed the river. And he'd take you across like that. Now I remember one time he got up in the wagon, got a bedding all wet. He hit a hole and just come up in the wagon, got everything wet. She was a dangerous old river.
It really was, and it had a lot of quicksand.
Yeah,
If you got into one of those quickie places, you were in trouble.
yeah,
Couldn't get out.
that's right.
That's much like a pilot on a riverboat, on the river, then a pilot that would guide a riverboat around the places it could get through,
Mhm.
wasn't it?
Well, that's what that fellow would do. He'd guide us through that.
I guess that was his profession. Did he
That's right.
make pretty good money? What did he charge to get you across?
I don't remember, Troy.
50 cents or a dollar,
No, I
I
don't
imagine,
remember.
something like
But
that.
I know he had an old horse, didn't have no hair on his tail. Just slick it.
Bobtail.
Mm-hmm.
Sorrow, big sorrow.
Yeah.
Blaze face, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Big sort of. Mm-hmm.
And the old horse probably knew more about the river than the people did.
You couldn't ride him off on those holes.
So he'd guide the wagon across the river, and one time you got in and got wet.
Yeah.
Did it scare you pretty much when water came up in the wagon?
Oh, I don't know. It's a little Troy. I don't know. It wouldn't now.
But you can remember it, anyway.
Yeah.
What are some other things? What was the country like here? Was there any wheat being grown at that time?
No, sir, there wasn't no wheat. I forget Mr. Sanders out here. That's R.E. Sanders, daddy, granddaddy. Ray put in the first wheat was in this county.
What was it like? Did people say, well, that'll never last, that may be some newfangled idea? What did people think about that?
Well, I really don't know, Troy. But I remember very well he was the first one planted wheat. And that was way back there, I guess, in 12, 13, you know, when that commenced, you know.
You know how much he planted?
No, I don't.
But you remember he was the first one?
Yes, sir.
to start
Planted wheat.
breaking out.
That's R.E. Sanders' granddaddy.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have any idea how much he made out of it per acre?
No, sir, I don't.
But we do know that the Sanders family were the first ones to put wheat in.
Well, I remember he sure was.
That was 1914 or 15.
Miss Emmett wrong there.
That's after the war had started, World War I. Were you getting any news? Did the war bother any of the people in here? Did they pay much attention to it?
Yeah, you know, I registered in that World War War myself.
You registered for the draft.
Yeah.
And it got over with before your number came up.
Yeah.
There were quite a few people that I know that got as far as the training camp and then got released.
We had some boys get first guyman. Floyd Hayes was in one of them, and I don't really recall the rest, but...
Now, what years did your dad serve as sheriff?
Well, he was elected in 1909, and went into 1911, got killed in
For 2 years.
1911.
About a little over 2
Yeah.
years. Now, how about the family? What did the family do for a living then? Did you keep the livery stable? Or-
No, he'd sold that when he went in the sheriff's office. He sold it, and he built a house about a mile east of Old Hansford down there, and bought a section of land where the Sparks boys now has got the racetrack.
Right in there.
That was our old place, yeah.
And have you been out there to the racetrack lately?
Yes, sir.
And I guess you can get a lot of memories from it.
Yeah.
Where was Old Hansford? I never have been able to pinpoint it when I go out there. Of course, the cemetery's out there somewhere close, but
Well, it's just go right on like you're going to Groover, you know, Troy. You know where the bridge is down there. Well, it's just right back east there,
east
where
of
the
that
bridge was, yeah.
On which side of the road, north or south?
You'd be on the north side of the road.
On the north
Mhm.
side.
Mhm.
Well, Bill Hutton lives
Yeah,
down there pretty
yeah,
close.
right there.
Is he living on part of what it
No,
was? Old
he's
Hansford?
crossed the creek. He's on the west side of the creek, and Old Hansford is on the
East side.
east side, yeah.
And how big was Old Hansford? Do you remember?
Oh, there's just 4 or 5 stores there.
And
P.M. Mays is there, Mr. Hayes, Doc Hale is in the drug business, and wasn't very many.
And of course the courthouse was there.
Yeah,
Did they move that courthouse up here, or did they
No.
just build another one?
just build another.
This was a pretty fine courthouse when it was built. Then.
You bet. Yeah.
Still is for that.
Yeah.
But when did they move Old Hansford to?
1909, I believe, Troy.
Up here?
1919.
1919.
I believe
That
so.
was after the war was over.
Yeah.
We have some books in there from the P.M. Mays store, and of course P.M. Mays and Brant were
Partner.
partners,
Mhm.
and they're very interesting. I noticed in 1921 a dozen eggs sold for $1.09. Do you remember the high price of eggs then?
No,
You
no, I
raised
don't.
your own chickens, I guess.
Yeah.
How about when you lived in town? You had you kept animals there, I guess, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, when I moved in Old Hansford, just making difference, keep anything you wanted to.
And you told about the family moving to Colorado. When was that? Your family?
But that was 1915.
That was after your dad had been
Mhm.
killed. And what? Tell us about that trip.
Well, these cattle that my brother bought in Fort Worth, that we brought from Glacier up here, we moved them to Colorado. Well, as I recall, there was about 75 head of them, and we moved about 50 head of horses, about 125 horses and cattle. And we left there along about April on 1915. And we moved on Rue Creek, other side of Springfield, about 30, 40 miles out of Springfield.
Up in the east part of Colorado, southeast.
Mhm. And we was on the road, I don't know, 20, 25 days.
You had to find places for the cattle to graze and horses and so forth.
But it wasn't no trouble finding grass, you had to find your water.
And did you have scouts out looking for watering holes when you?
Well, there'd be some of us boys that go ahead, a horseback. Yeah.
Did you have a chuck wagon?
Well, we had a wagon, and we slept and ate all the time. My mother was alone.
And did she do the cooking
Yeah.
for you? What kind of meals would you have? Did you cook on an open fire?
Cook on open fire. She'd just make those, I'd call them sort of pancake biscuits, in a skillet,
Yeah.
and just fry potatoes and meat and stuff, and
Coffee?
yeah, coffee. And if we'd find a good hole of water, well, maybe we'd stay a couple of days and let the stock rest up,
So it took you almost a month to
Yeah,
make the trip.
go.
Why did you make the to go to Colorado?
Well, really, I guess on account of we was going west and get some of that cheaper land, and it was just cheaper to do it here, Troy. I just really don't know.
Just the lure of a pioneer.
Yeah, I guess so.
Go west, young man, go
And my
west.
mother filed, when I got out there, she filed on a half section of land. And of course, everything is wide open, and it's wide open from here out there.
Uh-huh. So all the land you went over, you just went until you found some land you liked and stopped then. Was there a settlement there at that time?
Yeah, there's settlement there.
And near Springfield.
Yeah, about 30, 40 miles northwest Springfield.
You don't remember the town, the name of the town where you
Well, there
settled?
wasn't no town to it. There's a little old post office there they call it on Rue Creek. I forget the name of the post office, but there wasn't no town to it.
What kind of a house? Did you build your house, or?
Yeah, I built a little old flat roofed house about, I guess 30 feet long, a dirt floor.
And how about the snows? Did you have many bad snows in the wintertime there?
Well, we had quite a bit of snow, yeah.
What kind of fire did you have there? Heat?
Oh, we burnt that cedar wood.
Where were there any trees close by there?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of timber in there.
And I
Lot
guess you did a lot of sawing and chopping there.
Yeah, we chopped those posts and sold them.
How did you make a living between crops? By such things as selling cedar posts?
Yeah, we sold cedar posts, yeah.
Chip, you're getting a little farther away from the microphone there. We sure want you heard now. How many trees could you cut down, could two men cut down in a day? About.
Well, about 100 posts, Troy, that's what a man cut
And
in a day.
what did you get, about 10 cents a piece for them?
Well, on the ground now you get about 10 cents, but you haul them off, you get about 25, 30 cents.
So it paid you to haul them.
Yeah.
Did you? I think before we got on the air, you spoke something about being in the freight business. Were you in the freight business a while?
Well, I freighted wheat from here to Texoma, yeah.
We'll talk about that in just a minute. Right now, here's another message from Hopper's A&W. Our guest this morning is Chip Martin, and we've gotten him up into Colorado. Chip, you had about 75 head of cattle and 50 head of horses, and you built a house up there and started carving out a living by cutting cedar fence posts and hauling them. You did a lot of other things, too. But what happened to the horses and the cattle? A half section of land wasn't enough to keep them, was it?
No, it was wide open, though, Troy.
Open range.
Open range, just turn them loose.
Wasn't you afraid they might stray off 100 miles away and you'd lose them?
Well, no, they stayed pretty close around. When you get a water hole for them, they stay around.
And you'd just ride out and inspect them every few days.
That's right.
Kind of round them up, keep them close at hand.
Yeah. The J.J. Ranch is just selling out when we get out there. But there's no fences nowhere.
And what was the price of cattle? Do you remember?
It seemed to me like these cattle cost about $30 a head, Troy. I wouldn't say so. Around $30 for a cow.
And then when you got them up there and wintered them, what kind of price would you get for them when you took them to market, you know?
Well, I really don't know, but it seemed to me like the calves were worth about 4 or 5 cents a pound. Along about then.
Probably weigh around 700 or 800, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
5 to about $40.
Yeah.
There wasn't much chance of making money off
No.
that, was there? In fact, you said you all went broke up there.
That's right.
Did you prove out the land up
Yeah,
there?
we proved it out.
And I guess you kept it or disposed of it at some other time.
Yeah.
When did you come back to Hansford County?
Let's see, we was up there about 4 years. I think come back about 1919, when or something like that.
And how about, did you bring the stock back with you?
No, didn't bring nothing
You
back.
sold it.
Mhm.
And where did you come to in Old Hansford?
When we come back to our place down here,
Still had it?
we
intact?
still had our place down there, yeah.
How much acreage did you have in your
Had a section, 640 acres.
section of land?
Mm-hmm.
And you still have that now?
No.
You sold that?
Yeah.
You have other land here now?
Well, I have land, yes, sir.
How much was land selling for at that time in this county?
Oh, I imagine $4 or $5 an acre.
Pretty good land, too. wasn't it?
Yeah.
Same kind of land that with irrigation on it now sells for at least 100 times that much.
Yeah. I remember my daddy gave a section of land to have a well dug over here in Ocklatree County.
Is that right?
Whole section.
A whole section of land
To have a well dug. Mm-hmm.
I guess they had to guarantee the well.
Well, I
That
guess
was
so,
good.
Troy.
That's something. A whole section of land
That's
to get a
right.
well dug. That's pretty high
Well,
price.
it was worth about $1 an acre, see, then.
Yeah. Then did you get into the ranching business when you came back, or you went into the freighting business, didn't you?
Well, we got some more horses and wagons together, and I freighted some to Texoma, yeah, in Guyman, mostly Texoma.
How much hauling wheat a lot, weren't you?
Yeah,
Because those were the closest elevators or closest shipment.
yeah, Texoma.
And how long would it take you to go from here to Texoma?
No, about 3 days.
3 days.
Mm-hmm.
How many wagons would you take?
2.
How many horses for each wagon or mules?
Well, some all the way from 4 to 6 head.
And if you got into a rough spot, you'd unhook the team off of one wagon, put them all on one.
Yeah, on cold water, we had to unhitch a lot of times. There's a sand bed in there, and had to unhitch or double up to get across there, yeah.
To get your... How much would a wagon weigh full of wheat at that time?
Oh, gosh, Troy, I don't know, you know. We'd haul about 75, 80 bushel on the wagon.
Uh-huh. That's about what I wanted to find out anyhow.
Mhm.
75 to 80 bushel,
Mhm.
and it's normally 60 pounds the bushel.
Yeah.
58 to 60. So you had quite a bit of weight on there.
Yeah.
And you didn't have roads to drive on like we have
No.
today.
I remember the first time I met an old Model T. These Model Ts come out, you know. The ruts is about that deep, you know.
Yeah.
And this Model T come up and he couldn't get out of the road and make all the horses break their tongues out, you know.
And it scared your horses.
Scared the horses, and they'd turn around and break their tongues out, and we'd say that old smart fella that car.
Yeah, I imagine you had a few choice names for it.
Well, they couldn't get out of those ruts either, you know.
Sometimes you'd be delayed for quite a while.
Yeah.
Get by each other.
Mm-hmm.
And take you 3 days. Did you take cooking equipment with you?
Oh,
of
yes, sir.
course? And how many would go on a freighting trip?
Well, I've seen the highest 100 head turned loose in one place, Troy, at one campground.
My goodness.
100 head of work horses.
You'd join other freighters then.
Yeah, we'd all throw our lunch together, all eat together.
Uh-huh. And the main thing is you knew about where the water was.
Oh, yeah.
And that sort of thing. You'd make it to one place one day.
That's right.
Finally get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Then would you try to bring things back? I guess the neighbors all said,
Well,
get me a needle and thread.
Well, we had, a lot of times we'd bring coal back.
And coal was being used here quite a bit.
Mhm. And I remember one time Whalen Martin, he's on the law force here, you know.
Yes.
He's a little bitty baby when my daddy got killed. And I took him with me one time, and it come a big rain. And
Was Bill a pretty good trooper?
Huh?
Was Bill a pretty good trooper?
Well, I remember it just rained, the water run on us, and he got up on me and laid on me and slept that night. I mean, he's a little bitty old tosser.
I bet you that was a lot of comfort to him to have somebody to be there and nestle
Yep.
up to. But you had all kinds of elements and everything in those days.
That's right.
And now, Chip, what about some of the other times? Have we covered everything that you'd like to cover? Or are there some things you remember you'd like to put on this tape for us?
Well, about all I know, Troy, is we picked up those cow chips and burnt them for fire.
We've had quite a few to talk about the firewood that they use as cow chips.
Mhm.
Were there any buffalo chips here at the time?
No,
Were there any buffaloes around that you knew? you
no,
remember?
no.
I talked to a man, I think I have this on another tape, but we'll put it on this one. There was a gentleman that lived at Allen Reed, name of McCracken, and he was here in the 1880s and 1890s, and he told
Mhm.
about one time he and his partner were hunting, and that's their chief industry, and he went out where there were some antelopes and killed 15 antelopes in one afternoon, and he dressed them all out. He got in a clearing in the woods, and he was busy dressing these animals. Finally had them all ready to load up. He had a couple of pack horses there.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked up, and he was completely surrounded by Indians. And, of course, all they wanted to be friendly with him was for him to give them all the antelopes, and he did. But he said that he had seen buffaloes passing in migration from a half mile to a mile and a half wide, going endlessly for 2 to 3 days, millions of them. And he said that if anyone had ever told him that there would come a time when there wouldn't be any buffaloes, he'd thought they were crazy.
Mhm.
But I guess by the time you came here, there were not that
No,
many
there wasn't no buffalo in here. But
Yeah.
we did have Indians come through Old Hansford about every year. There'd be a tribe of them come through and camp at Old Hansford.
Were they friendly to you?
Yeah, they'd put on the war dance for us and all that stuff.
And you don't know where they were from.
No, they just come from west, all I know, and going east.
They might have been migrating back from their reservation over to the New Mexico Indian ceremonies
Might
that
be.
they had there every year.
Mm-hmm.
They still go. Any other thing that you recall? What were the houses like here then? Were there any half dugouts, so-called half dugouts?
Yeah, when we went to Old Hansford, why, we lived in the half dugout. And
Describe a half dugout for those people who are young and might not have ever seen one.
well, a half dugout will be down in the ground about, I'd say 4 feet in the ground, and the rest of it is sticking out, you know.
Usually trying to dig into the side of a hill so that you've got the hill covering
Yeah.
for you.
And we lived in a half dugout there at Old Hansford for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. My daddy finally built a house down there, and I really think the old house is still sitting there. One of the Sparks boys lived in it for quite a long time down there. And the old house may still be there.
And it had a dirt floor, I guess.
Yeah, the cellar had a dirt floor, yeah.
How did people store their food then? You didn't have refrigerators and things. What kind
No.
of food did you have?
Well, during the winter, we'd butcher our hogs, you know, during the winter. We'd kill, half a dozen hogs, or maybe more.
And you had a preservative called, you cured the ham.
Yeah, they smoke it and hung it up, and once in a while in the winter, then we'd kill beef and hang a quarter on the windmill tower, and it'd freeze, and we'd cut it off that way.
That was fine beef, wasn't it?
You bet.
And you had a block and tackle with a rope, and you'd let the beef
Let her
down
down.
and saw off what you
That's
wanted,
right.
pull it back up.
Yeah.
And-
Seemed me like it's a lot better than it is now.
Well,
I guess we're a lot hungrier.
I think it was very, very fine because it hung there for a long time.
Yeah.
Probably 3 or 4 months at times.
Mm-hmm.
What about the staples? You had flour, I guess.
Yeah.
Anything like that in the stove time, was there?
No, I didn't know what a loaf of bread was.
And did you have cornbread? Did people
Yes,
eat
sir.
cornbread here?
Yeah, we had cornbread.
And the flour, of course. You know, everybody made biscuits and pies. You ate pretty good, didn't you?
Well, yeah. It's solid food. You could work on it, you know.
That's right.
Uh,
There wasn't anything like breakfast cereals at that time.
no,
Okay.
I don't.
Breakfast consisted of ham and eggs, or bacon and eggs, and potatoes, and hot biscuits.
Now, one time my brother-in-law went to Guyman and got some grapefruit, and he brought them back, and I don't know, big sack of them. Us kids tore into them. We thought they was oranges, you know.
Got a,
We got a surprise when we tore those grapefruit open, you know.
did you like them?
Well, not as well as I thought we did.
A little different, aren't they?
Yeah, a little different oranges.
Back now into the 1920s, after you'd gotten back to Texas, what did there start to be some sudden changes in the 20s in this country? The tractor came into existence, didn't it?
Well, the tractors, I just don't know when the tractors come in, Troy. They come in, I think Spin the railroad came in 1924, I believe, wasn't it?
I just don't know.
The railroad came in 1924. Then we come in having some tractors.
And started breaking out the land and
Yeah.
putting wheat in.
Mhm.
And elevators sprang up here in this
Mhm.
country.
Talking about antelope, I've killed a lot of antelope right in here. This used to be an awful antelope place.
And what happened to them? There's too many people for
There's
them?
too many people, they moved out.
How about the elks? Were there any
No.
deer or elks in here?
There's deer on the river, but no elks that I ever saw on the river.
You remember Colonel Goodnight, I'm sure. You.
I haven't read about him, know about him, yeah.
I was down on the ranch that he established just 2 weeks ago, and he brought a whole bunch, about 200 elks in there, turned them loose in that Paladir Canyon,
Mm-hmm.
and they did real well there, but they had to get rid of them because if the farmers cut their feed and shocked it, the elks could invade it and ruin it all in one night. So
Mhm.
they just couldn't keep them; they had to haul them
Hmm.
out. But I guess that'd be the same thing here.
Mhm.
Antelopes are not big enough to do too much damage.
No,
Of course, there's not much feed being shot.
there's still a few antelope east here now, between here and Canadian.
Yeah, and of course you get out on the brakes. How about the coyotes?
Yeah.
Did they give you much trouble with your calving?
Well, they killed quite a few calves, yeah. Those coyotes would.
I noticed in
We had those big loaf of wolves and some.
in Cassie Richardson's notes, I noticed an entry where they paid a bounty for jackrabbit ears.
That's right.
You remember those days?
12, 13 cents for a rabbit.
Is that right? You can make pretty good money killing
Well,
rabbits. Then.
We had a lot of fun killing rabbits. And,
Almost got rid of the rabbits.
well,
They
and
almost-
coyotes, you know, there's a bounty on coyotes, too.
for the protection of the farmers
Mhm,
and ranchers,
Just clip their ears off and bring them into the county clerk.
and get whatever the bounty was being
That's
paid
right.
that year.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else in those days different than then? When did you get your first car?
Gosh. I don't know, Troy. It must have been way back there in 1919, something like that.
And-
Old Model T.
Model T car.
Uh-huh.
And you couldn't drive it too far because the roads were just not there.
That's right.
How did you get gasoline into this part of the country? pointing wagons?
Well, I just couldn't say. I hadn't thought about that. I don't know, but I know it'd take us 2 days to go from here to Colorado in
a
Model
car.
T. Yeah.
And if you broke down, it took you longer than that.
Yes.
Took
And I
plenty-
rode a horseback from Colorado in 4 days.
Ah.
When I went out there, I made a trip back here horseback.
You could have a flat pretty often in a Model T because
Yeah.
of the rough roads and everything.
It'd take you half a day to fix it.
All of you had tires and extra tires and tubes and patching equipment.
Yeah.
People now wouldn't know how to patch a
No.
tube, would they?
We just patch them right there on the road.
And then pump them up again.
Yeah, pump them up. Them old pumps.
If you needed to, you could put a rock under the axle and lift the wheel up that way
Yeah.
because that's quicker than taking
Mhm.
a jack.
Another thing, there was just 2 cars in our county when my dad got killed in 1911.
You know what they were?
Johnny O'Laughlin out here, you've heard of Johnny,
Yes.
he had an old white Buick and shifted on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a doctor down there that had an old Buick too, and I can't think of his name, and I asked my sister what his name was, but I just can't think of his name. But there were just 2 cars, as far as I know, in our county.
And I guess they were, when people saw them, that's like seeing an airplane in the 20s.
Can you imagine? Yeah. They had no top on them, no doors on the side, it was just open.
Chip, when did you finally settle on the ranch that you're on now? You own property south of Spirit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I settled on that in 1942, I believe, on that place out there.
And you started some young men into working with animals, and you must have worked with animals all your life.
Yeah.
And you kind of believe in this rodeo business, don't you?
Well, yeah, I like it. I
Uh,
used to ride a lot myself, and
did you break horses as a profession?
well, yeah, I did.
What was that like? Let's capture some of that because
Really?
that's an art that's
Well, about
almost
every
gone.
Sunday, Charlie, Charlie Riley had horses all over this country, different ones. And when they put in this stockyards here on the railroad, we had a good corral down here, see? And every Sunday, us boys would corral these horses down there in that stockyard. And we'd ride them broncs all day.
And did you ever take a bronc and break him and train him so he's a good saddle horse?
Yeah, I broke a lot of good saddle horses, yeah. But I never was much of a hand to make them do any tricks or nothing. They just,
Well,
Right.
just so they worked for you.
yeah.
Didn't
Hmm.
they? What was it like? Did the boys kind of banter each other to see which one would ride the worst animal?
Oh, yeah.
And did you ever get thrown any?
Oh, yeah.
Did you get hurt badly? At any
I never was hurt in my life.
That's very fortunate, isn't it? I think the roughest part of the cowboy's career was probably breaking these horses. I wouldn't want any part of it, but I've sure watched a lot of it, and that's the way you got them off the range. Were there any wild horses here then?
Well, no.
Were the wild horses in anywhere in the next 200 or 300 miles?
Well, there were some wild horses west of us in Colorado.
Horses were pretty valuable at that
Mhm,
time,
yeah.
especially if they were.
Yeah, horses was pretty high at that time, you know.
Did you ever go into the range where the wild horses were and get any?
No, I never did.
Did you know anyone that did?
No, I didn't. They was west of us, but they was up there. But I just,
How much would a horse bring? A good horse? in those
well,
days?
a good horse bring $100.
And that was a lot of money.
Mhm.
And they went down to nothing to where you couldn't give them away there.
That's
when
right.
The tractor got in, but now they're coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, these good saddle horses now, you know, is worth from $500 to $1,500.
I was on the Goodnight Ranch, or it's now the Hedgecote Ranch, a couple of weeks ago, and saw 10 or 12 horses there in the corral. And my nephew, who is the foreman there, told me that there wasn't a horse in there that he'd paid less than $1,000 for.
Mhm.
Of course, they were all pretty well registered stuff,
Yeah.
but they were good
Mhm.
quarter horses.
Mhm.
And from 1,000 to the sky's the limit.
Oh, yeah, a lot of these good roping horses a lot bring $5,000 to $6,000.
Do you work with any of those now? Training horse rodeo?
no, I
Did
don't.
you ever participate in rodeo events? You must have.
Yeah, I used to saddle bronc ride.
Did you win a lot of first prizes?
Well, not too many, Charlie. Not too many.
I don't guess you do any riding on
No.
broncs now.
No.
What's the hang of riding a bronc? Just getting the rhythm of the
Well,
animal.
you got to get your rhythm, yeah.
If the animal tries to break that rhythm so that
Yeah.
you go one way and he goes the
Yeah,
other.
there's just a lot of boys that never can ride because they ain't got the rhythm. They just,
I guess you go to a lot of rodeos now then.
well, yeah, I went to as many rodeos as with James, yeah.
And he's furnishing stock now. Is your place out there where they keep that stock?
Well, some of them, yeah.
How many animals do you have out there?
Well, we got about 20 big bulls out there and about 35 head of horses.
What advice would you give a greenhorn like me about getting in around those bulls? Stay away from them
Well, no, they won't hurt you, Troy, hardly ever.
unless you get them in a pen.
You get them in a tight place, yeah. We just walk between them all the time. Some of them we just walk up to and scratch them.
They're gentle, but you get them in a bucking chute and they're different animals.
Yeah.
Where do you get those animals? Where do you buy the bulls?
Well, he just bought them everywhere. He got some bulls out of Houston last year, and he got some bulls out of Florida last year. And you can buy 10 or 12 bulls, Troy, and if you get 2 or 3 good bulls out of that many bulls, you're lucky.
And then what do you do with the rest of them?
We just have to sell them.
To the packing houses.
Uh-huh.
And do you ever go into old Mexico?
No.
Are there places down in the southern states like southern Texas and Florida that raise bulls
Yeah.
for this purpose?
Mm-hmm. Austin, down in there, they raise a lot of these bulls.
They're all Brahmas or crosses.
Well, crossbred. We're about quitting the Brahma bulls.
Why is that? Too expensive?
Well, no, they're too crazy.
Hard to handle.
They're hard to handle. They're subtle and tear down. These crossbred bulls, when you're all these big rodeos now, they got the crossbred bulls.
They
They're
seem to
gentler
be,
type, but they're,
but they're equally as rough to ride.
well, they're rougher, I guess. They're stouter.
Uh-huh. The Brahma was kind of wiry, but
Yeah,
but
they're
bigger.
hard to ride. The Brahma hide is so loose, Troy, that you can't
Get a hold on them.
get a hold.
Roll them.
But they are crazy. They tear down more stuff. We haven't got but about 2 Brahma bulls. And they're
You've
pretty
got a lot
gentle.
of bucking stock and horses too, haven't you?
Yeah,
About how many horses?
we got about 35 bucking horses.
And your sons now take this stock and make rodeos. And
Yeah.
produce rodeos.
Yeah,
They'll produce this one right here.
yeah, they got 2. They got 2 here that produce. The high school and amateur.
And then I think he's booked in 14 different rodeos this
Well,
year.
he quite a few. He goes to Groover this weekend.
Uh-huh.
And
So this is being taped on March the 4th, 1974. So that'll give all the historians that are listening to this tape years from now, a time when this was being made. Our guest this morning is Chip Martin, who is one of the early settlers here in Hansford County. And we've enjoyed visiting with Chip very much and getting all of this history that took place here in the years gone by. Chip's dad was one of the early sheriffs of Hansford County. Tomorrow morning, our guest is going to be Cassie Richardson. We're going to continue to browse through her notebook of records of the county courthouse. And we got up, I think, as far as about 1919 with Cassie in our last visit. We hope to finish it and bring it up to date in our visit with Cassie tomorrow. We hope that everybody will be listening. I apologize for my voice. I'm trying to get over a cold right now, and maybe it won't be too bad by tomorrow. Chip, thank you so much for being our guest this
you're
morning.
welcome, Troy. I've enjoyed it.
And we owe a lot to Clementine Renner for getting our guest for us this morning, and she's lined up old-timers for us all this week. We have 2 I know of, maybe 3 from Groover that'll be here with us through the week, and of course tomorrow Cassie Richardson. We hope you'll be with us. Our program brought to you this morning by Hopper's A&W Drive-In, and they hope that you'll have a very fine day.